are these people?
But speaking of segments, let's get started on our first one. So did you catch any of the coverage, Colin, of Day X? I had to be there for all 20 hours of it. So, you know, fun times. It was also miserable today in London, but we'll get to that. So, first of all, let's start with Stella speaking 2 days ago, 1 day ago, 20th, right? So 20th of February, the first day of Day X, which was essentially the defense, right? So they also did it in magistrate court. Colin, you spent some time in London. What is magistrate court usually used for?
My license was going to go out.
I don't know if you spent time dealing with British law, but
no,
you know, so
no,
not sure. But yeah, usually it's for like minor shit.
Minor, yeah. It's like, I mean,
yeah, like parking tickets and whatnot. So
yeah.
But yeah,
what we call small claims.
Yeah.
Here. So basically.
Yeah. So let's get started. We'll let Stella open us up here. Wife and mother to Assange's children.
Wow. Thank you everyone for coming here today for Julian. He'll be very moved to know that so many people showed up today. Whatever happens today and tomorrow and this week, please keep on showing up. Be there for Julian and for us and for you until Julian is free. Free Julian Assange. Thank you. Thank you. We have 2 big days ahead. We don't know what to expect. But you're here because the world is watching. They have to know they can't get away with this. Julian needs his freedom, and we all need the truth. Thank you.
So that was yesterday morning, 3 in the morning for us, close to. So let's head to the next one. Also wanted to shout out Juan Passarelli and Free Assange News, as well as Consortium News. Both of them had excellent coverage that they allowed us to use and gave to us. Very kind of them. They killed it these last couple of days. So let's get to a bit of the shenanigans, shall we? So Kevin Gosztola, Assange didn't attend extradition appeal hearing in person or virtually because of his health. During a media briefing, it was mentioned Assange had, quote, excessive coughing and broke a rib. He suffers from osteoporosis, another stark reminder that this is a matter of life and death. Denver Free Assange, who we had on, what was it, 2 weeks ago? Kendra, I think. Yeah, Julian Assange is being murdered in Belmarsh. There's no excuse for him to have a cough so severe and untreated as to cause a broken rib. These people are monsters.
I mentioned
So,
this on Misty's
mhm.
on her show on Monday. There's probably a reason for that they did not allow Julian to show up, because if he did, and considering this guy's been tortured for God
Uh-huh.
knows how long, and if God forbid if they allowed to see him, that we're able to visually see him and his state
Yep.
physically and get that pity, vote, well, vote, but like pulling the heartstrings at his suffering, at the hands of the empire, like they can't have that, and the empire is aware of that and they're wising up to that. So like, ignorance is bliss. So it's better off. And from what I do know, because I mean, I work during the day, so it's like I can see uh really any of the coverage, really, other than what I was able to see on Twitter. But I do know that there were shenanigans regarding, and I'm sure you'll get to this later, Reef, of reporters weren't able to hear what was going on. Like, it was just like a clusterfuck in terms of trying to get information, and then like people who requested to be there, who spent months requesting to be there, were not able to necessarily get the information that they needed to report. They gave, from what I understand, priority to mainstream media, but we know mainstream media ain't going to report any of this.
Mhm.
So it was just it just seemed like a lot of, kind of gloss over. Just, we're going to do this because obviously we know it's a big story, but we ain't telling people shit. Like,
No.
we really don't want you to know what's
No.
going
I mean, people had difficulty searching it on any of the major mainstream platforms, so I think a few people had to cover it just because it's a thing. But a couple of people who did cover it pretty extensively. Richard Medhurst has a live thread of both days. He was in the courtroom, so definitely go check him out. I think this is Kathy Vogan over at Consortium News. Again, both days, morning and afternoon. So go to both these guys on Twitter, at Consortium News, at Richard Medhurst, Richie Medhurst. So definitely go check them out and go in depth. I mean, they literally did it play by play. So, but which was not easy. Matt O'Brien, I think that's how you pronounce his name, actually gave us sketches from fuzzy television footage, of inside the courtroom, right? So, they got all shoved into this room. Colin, look at how big this room is.
I mean, giving us a picture, but yes.
But it's like, here's the wall.
Height. Right.
Like, this is like, I've been in churches bigger than this. I've been in small churches bigger than this. This is like the church pews and like the altar up here. You know what I mean? Like, that's not, so yeah, terrible. So, you got two counsels for Assange, right behind them, Gareth Pierce. And from the right, John Shipton, Gabriel Sinchin, Stella. I imagine that's Stella here. Gabriel, right?
Right.
Behind them is like Chris Hedges, Craig Murray. So some people got in. But Stella's going to detail the first proceedings here in, I forget what they called this, magistrate court, right?
Yeah.
At the royal, from the Royal Courts of Justice. That's where it is. I can read
I just
things.
want to speak a little bit to you because it's only a handful of us inside the room that actually can follow the proceedings. So I wanted to tell you about what was going on in there. We opened and we talked about Julian's political opinions and his political motivations. and they are clear, and they're unchallenged, which is to expose state criminality. And what happens when you expose state criminality? The United States has taken a politically motivated prosecution against a journalist because he exposed them committing crimes. And so what's going on inside this courtroom is to determine how the extent of the cover-up. How is this court going to deal with this case? We heard that the case was only brought after the United States said that it would do anything to prevent the International Criminal Court from examining an investigation into US activities in Afghanistan. And of course, WikiLeaks evidence in the publication that Julian's indicted over are part of that case. WikiLeaks has been used as evidence in the European Court of Human Rights and other foreign courts to expose state criminality. And the United States is abusing its legal system in order to hound and prosecute and intimidate all of you. What's at stake is the ability to publish the truth and expose crimes when they're committed by states. The outcome of this hearing today will make it clear the extent of the cover-up. The only fair, I shouldn't even talk about fairness at this stage, because the country that's trying to extradite him plotted to murder him. What are we even entertaining in these courts? How can any how can you even entertain this hearing knowing what we know? It's all on the public record. And yet it continues. It's only a handful of us in that room, but you know what the stakes are. You understand what this is about. It's about you, it's about us, it's about the public's right to know. It's about the right to be able to speak freely without being put in prison and hounded and terrorized by the state. Thank you.
There you have it. Thoughts so far, Collin?
I mean,
Will I get to the next thing?
I mean, this is nothing new or anything different that we've not talked about before. This is a sham and a waste, honestly, a waste of time. And the fact that we're even kind of going through this, you know, in the guise of this country trying to hide from the crimes that they committed and basically pinning it on Assange in terms of him being like what they're calling him, you know, essentially a terrorist.
Oh yeah, we're gonna
I mean,
get to those.
Sick.
So this is, I can never pronounce this guy's name. It's weird and you know, Scandinavian something. Canafarison, I think. Canafarison, something like that.
Welcome back.
This is Juan Passarelli, by the way, who's been out there in London the whole time doing the work. So let's see what this is. He's going to talk about how they had to interact with this case. Keep in mind, Julian was absent, so I'm sure whatever footage he got was just as bad. You know, a case that may, you know, involve what is it, something like 490 years in prison, some crazy ridiculous number. So let's see what they had to deal with.
Back to the Assange extradition hearing. We're outside the Royal Court of Justice here in London. With me is Christian Grafsen, the editor-in-chief of WikiLeaks.
Grafsen.
He's been in court this morning, and he's going to tell you what the latest developments are.
Well, I was in the beginning in the court this morning, but I was not allowed to go into the main courtroom, so I was being allocated a seat in the annex room, which was supposed to have a live feed, audio and video feed from the main courtroom. But all the journalists there and me could not hear anything. The quality of the audio was so bad that nobody could make out anything. There was huge complaints. Some of the journalists left, and they seem simply not to be able to handle this situation. As we learned, of course, this morning, Julian Assange, for health reasons, was not able to attend this proceeding. And if he is allowed some access to video link to these proceedings that are so important for him and his future, where the question of life and death is at stake, he probably has to rely on the same video and audio link that people were not able to get anything from this morning. So, in short, it's an absolute travesty. But I could see through video that Ed Fitzgerald started out sort of outlining the main arguments of the case and why Julian Assange should not be extradited. The arguments are so solid that each and every point should suffice to quash this extradition. We can go into each and every one if you want, but this is the beginning. And when you observe how the court is handling this, just from the perspective of management, if that reflects the concept of the seriousness of the issue, I am not too hopeful. Bear in mind, they put this case in one of the smallest courtrooms in this huge building. A pivotal case of our time. If that reflects how they view this hearing, I am not very optimistic.
This is not something new, Christian. The technical issues and lack of access for journalists has been going on for a while.
Every step of the way, in all the proceedings we've had, there has been this obstacle. There's an obstacle for family to get in, for interested parties. I would assume that it's recognized that WikiLeaks is an interested party in this case, and I'm representing the organization. I've had a hard time getting in. I've been denied access. I've had to fight access. I was originally denied access here on Thursday. I protested on Friday, and they changed their position. Yes, all throughout the entire proceedings, when in this case against Julian, the courts have tried as much as possible to obstruct, and media has had huge difficulty getting any access to these proceedings, and so it's very hard to actually call this open justice. And bear in mind that observers that have monitored the entire proceedings, for example, Rebecca Vincent from Reporters Without Borders, who have been having to line up 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning to be able to get access as NGO observers in the most important case where the future of the media is decided. She has said that in all her previous cases and Reporters Without Borders cases where they have sent observers, where journalists are on trial in countries like Turkey and other countries, they have never experienced anything similar like in the British courts. And that speaks a volume about the situation here. People are not getting access through video link outside England and Wales, and I'm talking about journalists. A representative of Amnesty International was with me and trying to get a seat in the court. I don't think there was a success in the case. Foreign and local MPs have been trying to get access because they recognize the importance of the case without success. So this is this matter was not so serious, you would call it a joke.
Thank you very much, Kristen.
Thank you, Don.
Any questions?
No, I mean,
Yep.
just the idea, as he said and what I said earlier, just how almost disrespectful. Well, this hearing is pointless just to begin with, but just how disrespectful that just given the again, I say I'm going to mention Missy's show a lot, but again, I said on Missy's show on Monday, like this really should be a lot bigger than what mainstream media is portraying.
There's
this
so
to
many
be.
distractions on top of everything. It's difficult. Like, I get it.
Right,
know?
but I get that, but it all connects in terms of it does connect to Gaza in the sense of
Assange. Assange. I've told Misty 1,000 times. Misty said it 1,000 times. Assange is connected to every issue you find important. Every one of them.
Right.
So
but especially
this guy called out child trafficking, and that was one of his first gigs, by the way.
Right, but I think just basically freedom of speech. The idea that we have Ghazian journalists who are being killed right now because they're trying to promote the truth, and then they're being offed, by Israeli forces. So it all connects to to the very thing that we allegedly hold dear in the West, is the idea of learning the truth and being able to speak out on it. And that's what Julian did. And the idea that, one, people aren't really aware of what's going on, although, like, as Misty will share many times, if you talk to people and just mention, why Julian is in prison, within 5 minutes, people get it. So obviously mainstream media knows that too, that they want to kind of keep this, really hush hush, but then the idea of like, they don't want there to be like an outcry, kind of what we're seeing, with Gaza now. And even that, it's a distraction, but it relates to this. And I would wish that there would be connections between the two, if there with enough people who are kind of involved and calling out politicians regarding what's happening in Palestine. With this, I can't like, with that kind of tenacity of people had, with George Floyd, like, that's really what should be happening in the news right now.
So, Tara Reid lookalike and incredible Assange journalist Stefania Marizzi had half an hour into the hearing, and we journalists assigned to a Victorian gallery with no tables. I'm talking about colleagues with experience working for major media outlets can't hear, watch, understand what is being discussed and who is talking. So unfair to the role of the press. Misty Winston, friend of the show, this is easily the single most important case on press freedom and free speech maybe ever, and they can't even provide a proper workspace for the journalists covering it. But I'd hate to tell you I was surprised, because I'm not. So, this guy, you know him, you love him. No, he is not a Irish hair metal legend. He is Mick Wallace. I know him. I know you think he's your favorite rock star, but he only plays the hits.
In his own right.
Absolutely. A legend in his own right. So let's hear what he had to say out in London.
How you doing?
Also, shout out to him for wearing.
It's great to see so many good people here.
Right? Like, this is what I'm saying. He's like the lead of AC/DC. It's great. I love him.
It's great to see that there's so many people.
He looks like a wizard.
In the European Parliament, They talk morning, noon and night about freedom of journalism, freedom of expression, human rights, humanity law. But you know what? The place is creeping with hypocrisy. They don't give a damn about journalists when it doesn't suit them. The treatment of Julian Assange exposes the Western countries like nothing before. Over nearly 200 journalists have died in Gaza. They don't give a damn about them either. They only care about journalists provided they have them in their pocket and they do what they're fucking told. The persecution and the attempted extradition of Julian Assange is all about stopping the truth. Because they don't want the truth to be out there. Because they behave badly. They're still behaving like colonialists. Their mindset is still colonialist. And that too has been exposed in Ukraine and in Gaza. Western imperialism is still on the march. And Julian Assange had the audacity to expose the fact that they commit war crimes morning, noon and night to achieve their ambitions. Well, you know what? The people of the world are waking up. The people of the world have had enough of them. Politicians have never changed the world, but the people have. And more than ever, I have never seen so many people on the streets as we have in the last couple of years, because the establishment has been exposed to what it is. And God help us into Britain now, he's had to pick between Sunak and Starmer. God fucking help us. But things can change. We can make the world a better place. We can organise a society where people are treated fairly. We don't have that at the moment. But it's so important that we challenge the system. We cannot be putting up with it. We have to make it plain that the people have had enough of this nonsense. And the freedom of Julian Assange is central to this. If no one knows what verdict is going to come out of this trial. We've seen so many at this stage. But at the same time, the ICJ in The Hague gave us a verdict that we didn't expect. Let's hope we get another one out of Impels. Thanks.
Fucking just kick the microphone down, bro. Just, I don't even care. Fucking smash a guitar after that. You know what I'm saying? Like that, bro. Anyway, I fucking love that dude. And he's about to get hit up with the other female lead of the rock band he runs. You know her, you love her. It's Claire Daly. The Irish are out here doing it way better than most of the people out here, so, you know, I am always here to support them. And if only the IRA were back to its old shenanigans. Shenanigans.
On behalf of humanity, on behalf of everyone, to all of ye who have turned out today
all of ye.
In such large numbers, I know we've met people from Italy, people who travel from Switzerland, from Sweden. We know that as we are assembled here, there's people organising in Dublin, in Brussels, for the first time in Oslo, and all around the world, because we represent the voices of truth, the voices of freedom, and the voices of resistance. And that is why Julian Assange is in that court. Now we know that what is at stake here is not the life of a man, although the life of a man is at stake, and that is incredibly important, and we never lose sight of it for a minute. But more than that, it is the defence of freedom of speech, of freedom of association, a stance against the criminalisation of journalism. That is what we are here. And how absolutely outrageous is it that an exemplary journalist, and we heard the evidence in the court today, a journalist whose work in exposing war crimes, renditions, torture, criminality, resulted in those awful things being changed and stopped, that he's the one in prison and the people committing that are walking the streets doing gigs for Israel or whatever the hell Tony Blair does.
Preach.
So the chilling effect is here. We know that. They say if Julian is sent to America, the chilling effect will silence other journalists. It has already been here for the past 12 years. So I think it is very fitting that we're here against the backdrop of the appalling atrocities and the live stream genocide in Gaza. We know that also where a civilian imprisoned population is being targeted. We also know the Ukraine war is going on without end because that's what NATO want. And I just want you to remind you of the words of Julian when he talked about the war in Afghanistan. And he said that these wars are about flushing the money from the tax bases of the US and the EU through Afghanistan and back into the bank accounts of the military-industrial complex. It's not about winnable war, it's about endless war. How true he was. And therefore, that voice, that very 12 years. So I think it is very fitting that we're here against the backdrop of the appalling atrocities and the live stream genocide in Gaza. We know that also where a civilian imprisoned population is being targeted. We also know the Ukraine war is going on without end because that's what NATO want. And I just want you to remind you of the words of Julian when he talked about the war in Afghanistan. And he said that these wars are about flushing the money from the tax bases of the US and the EU through Afghanistan and back into the bank accounts of the military-industrial complex. It's not about winnable war, it's about endless war. How true he was. And therefore, that voice, that very special voice that he had is needed now more than ever, because it's not just about silence the peace movement, it's about journalism, it is about silencing the peace movement. So let's remember also that if wars can be started by lies, peace can be started by the truth. You're all here on the side of truth, so is Julian. We'll be all here tomorrow and we will not rest until justice prevails.
Well, I blame you, Claire, for getting our stream killed. Obviously it was your fault for speaking too much truth, Claire. So on to the next one. So, you know, shout out to our peeps that traveled. You know, you guys supported them to go. They went, they covered things. Russell Dobular of Dude Dissonance, aka Amber of Roar Media, doing the work out there. So I also wanted to showcase some of the amazing activists that don't get nearly the credit they deserve. So yellow ribbons for Assange with their amazing activism here. Your name should be in this group of yellow ribbons, Collin. My name should be in there. A lot of people's names should be in there. If you've got a yellow ribbon and you've earned your yellow ribbon, you know, let us know in the chat. So yeah, here's what also happened. This is all, this is a laser projector. I don't know if you've ever seen those. They're kind of neat. They spin lasers around and make stuff look good. So here's what it was putting up. I saw it get put up again. This is the Tower of London. It says free ass on it.
That's Tower Bridge.
Yes, this is the Tower of London, though.
That one is, yeah.
And this is Tate Modern. I saw it on Big Ben too. They kind of been killing it out there. So
yeah.
But this is, what bridge is this?
That's outrage.
Okay, yeah. Extradition 2021. Royal Court of London. If wars can be started by truth, or started by lies, peace can be started by truth. So yeah, you know, cool stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Denver Free Assange, killing it. Over there in Denver, they put out all these little pictures out there with the Palestinian flags, and they write, Denver, Day X setting up now, honoring the journalists who have their lives to bring us the truth about the Gaza genocide and rallying to save the life of another man who gave us the truth that could have prevented it. Right? Misty trying to give, you know, credit where credit is due, and they had a whole event there in Denver. It was Forest Mommy out there, you know, doing the work. So also Randy Credico, let's talk. He's got 2 billboard trucks in New York and 1 in DC. Melbourne's got their billboard trucks up. So those people were out in full force. We've got, this was over in Raleigh. You got Ray McGovern, right? He was out there. They did a whole little banner drop out there. New York represented. You got Katie Halper out there, Randy Credico. I think Medea Benjamin was also there. What else, Colin? We got Boston. Boston did their thing. Ford Fisher out there in DC, right? Doing the work as always. And look at these people who vigiled at the White House. So nice of them to do that. Candles for Assange over in Australia. They had theirs. This was in Chicago, right? Kevin Gostola reporting. So what else we got? We've got, again, Aussies came out. So this was LA for Assange. What else we got? Portland for Assange. They did their thing, right? We have Ireland representing over in Dublin. Where's this? Streets of London. They had a billboard truck out there too, out there in front of London Eye. There's Big Ben over there. So we got Glory Jones in Miami, catching some eyes already. Halo Benson, who we had on last week, was out there in Tulsa. And Melbourne for Assange represented. They got their Assange truck going. So yeah. Can I click next? There we go. So day 2, Colin, right? Would you like to see what they had to be met with? By the way, props to everyone out here this early in London on day 2, because I'm gonna tell you, it acted like London. It was cold and miserable and rainy and wet. It was London. So it was bad. Luckily it cleared up in the middle of the day, but definitely that morning it was pretty grim. So, but this is what they were greeted to outside of the royal courts. Every time I full screen, it just doesn't like it. There you go. So yeah, I mean, they definitely had some people out there these people had to walk by, so you know.
Julian Assange.
So both sides of the street. Yeah, doggo! I saw doggo! Doggo for Assange. Look at the cute doggo. Alright. So, let's start day 2. So, technical problems on day 1. Do you think it got fixed, Collin? Hell no. Hell no. So, consortium news. Judge, we are aware there were technical problems yesterday which impeded many journalists from following the proceedings. Apologies. Please let us know if they persisted today. Let's see what actually happened. The sound quality of the remote link is so poor that nobody observing the case via the remote access link nor in the media overspill room can hear what the legal representatives are saying. Court has risen as the staff attempt to sort this out. Okay? So, the UK courts are proving themselves incapable of administering a public hearing in a high-profile extradition case. Kevin Gosztola, Stefania Maritzi, the High Court judges just ordered the Julian Assange hearing to be temporarily suspended because even in the courtroom, we cannot hear what is being discussed. Stefania was 3 meters away from U.S. lawyers and yet could not hear what they had to say. So, it gets worse, Care Bear. This is Mohammed El-Mazi, another incredible journalist. Day 2 of Julian Assange's permission to appeal hearing at the High Court of Justice. I have been forced to leave the courtroom. To the press office and observe via video link. God willing, the connection will be strong enough to hear anything. Despite the fact that I have a press ticket, that I applied early, that I am the only journalist who have covered every single hearing in Julian Assange extradition case since April 2019. I was asked to leave the press section and move to the public gallery, which has no tables or anywhere for me to place my laptop and type. This is because priority is given not to the press who arrive on time, but rather members of the establishment press to ensure that they have a seat. Even though plenty legacy and establishment press entered yesterday, having been given priority among the press, the fact that I have a disability and can't write and therefore require the use of my laptop makes it all the worse. Caitlin Johnstone, one of our favorites, journos who've been covering Assange's case from day 1 are being forced to give up their seats to the mainstream press who've been ignoring Assange case the entire time, if not actively cheerleading his persecution. They show up the day the U.S. presents its arguments. Of course. Par for the course, no?
Yeah.
So, again, Matt O'Brien. Assange hearing day 2. Sketch of counsel for U.S. Argument outline. Assange is not a journalist. XY Chelsea is not a whistleblower. Right? That's Chelsea Manning. Had they been able to crack a hash, it could have allowed Manning to remain anonymous, right? So here this is the U.S. representative. So Assange counsel is smashing the U.S. arguments to bits. U.S. counsel visibly grimacing and hanging their heads. So that's that. So, let's get into why that might be the case. Richard Medhurst, Claire Dobbin, who was the U.S. attorney here, saying that the district judge, the judge in the lower court, Vanessa Baritzer, did not end up viewing Assange as journalist. She says that Assange's lawyers are portraying the indictment as a construct to punish Assange for political views, but a new U.S. administration was elected since the unsealing of the indictment. So her point is, basically, both the Trump and Biden administrations are proceeding with the extradition of Julian. So surely this means it's about the law and not a political persecution. Richie adds, you already know what I think, so I'll leave it for later. Yeah, thoughts so far, Care Bear?
I mean, I just feel like I'm just going to rehash what I said earlier. So,
okay.
No.
Denver Free Assange, they just keep repeating lies. Manning had access to all the docs, as did many. The so-called hack was an inquiry as to whether WikiLeaks could help them watch movies undetected, which they could not. This is a response to Dobbin, thus arguing that Assange's assistance to Manning, which might otherwise be seen as journalistic protection of a source, constitute criminal intent to steal classified documents. Matt O'Brien, allegation is that Assange solicited Manning to illegally access more material by saying curious eyes never run dry. Ears in the courtroom pricked up as the U.S. counsel dismissed another case by arguing that person was not under the jurisdiction of the U.S. That would be a factor, Care Bear. So, Richard Medhurst adds, Dobbin basically shrugs off the CIA plot to kill Assange, basically saying it doesn't matter because the indictment against Assange is legitimate. He adds, lol. So, again, you've got Hanafson, right? This is editor-in-chief of WikiLeaks after Julian was arrested. So he's going to summate, I think, some of this for us.
It was absolutely amazing to be in the courtroom this morning. I was not in the actual courtroom yesterday, but in a side room where I couldn't hear anything. Now I was in the actual courtroom and I still couldn't hear anything. So at least you're getting closer. You can see the reaction from the two judges and see the backhead of the lawyer representing the U.S. government. So what was he putting forth there? Absolutely nothing new. It was as we were offered to lunch on a leftover smorgasbord from last month. We've heard it all before, and it's all been refuted, not just in the courtrooms, but with new evidence that was totally disregarded. So they had nothing new to offer, but the old arguments that have been refuted. But what was interesting this morning is that the judges were paying attention and they were asking questions. Is it really true that Julian will not get a First Amendment protection when he is extradited? Etc., etc. At least we have the attention. Thanks to you, probably. They know that they need to scrutinize this and the arguments put forth. And the arguments were thin. Of course, we shouldn't be here, because it's been disputed everything that the Americans have been putting forth in this case. The day will continue. We will, of course, fight on. There is a glimpse of hope in the courts here. Let's not abandon that. Let's stay on that. Let's stay on the shift, on the watch. Thank you for coming here. Thank you for supporting Julian Assange. Let's free him. Let's free Assange now.
Any questions? Pretty much got it covered, right?
Yeah.
So Stella's going to explain a little bit of the arguments that were being made.
How pathetic the U.S. case is. They have to rely on lies. And then the prosecutors say, don't question these lies because that would offend our ally. 14 years on, all they can do is repeat the lies from the very first Pentagon press conference talking points sheet. What they're trying to argue is that state secrets trump revealing state crimes. This is the balance they're trying to shift. They want impunity, they don't want to be scrutinized, and journalism stands in the way. And in that courtroom, they are having to make their position increasingly clear. They have to admit that what they're doing is criminalizing journalism, is criminalizing the truth. They are liars, they are criminals, and they are persecuting the journalist who exposed them. Julian is a truth teller. He is a political prisoner. And the world is watching these courts and how they deal with this case. Please be here and come and march to Downing Street after the proceedings are over this afternoon. Thank you.
I mean, not much else to say, right?
No.
What else I got? There's a little bit more. We're on the home stretch though, so. Oh, of course. Julian's brother, Gabriel Shipton. He should definitely be added to this list
Hey
here.
everyone, thanks again for coming out and braving the weather. Amazing turnout again. Well, I mean, it's sort of a bit embarrassing watching the prosecutors in there trying to tell us that day was night and night was day, that Chelsea Manning's not a whistleblower and Julian's not a journalist. They really just brought absolute shame to that court and to the United Kingdom justice system. And this case remains a stain on the US, a stain on the UK, and both governments should be absolutely ashamed of it and what they're doing to press freedom and our rights. Because what was going on in there is the prosecutors telling us that journalism is a threat to democracy. And whistleblowing is a threat to democracy. Our right to know is a threat to democracy. So shame on them and free Julian Assange.
Pretty much how we all feel. So Juan Passarelli, the judge asked the prosecution if it was possible that once in the U.S., new charges could be brought that may carry a death sentence, like conspiracy to commit treason or espionage. The prosecution said, yes, it could happen. So, Caitlin Johnstone, responding to Assange defenders, which writes, Judge Johnson, if the appellant is extradited, is there anything to prevent the charge of aiding and abetting treason from being charged? Counsel, no. Judge, so is there anything to prevent it? Do you accept that the sentence could be the death penalty? Counsel, yes. Judge Johnson, could there be any assurance to protect against that? Counsel, why should the prosecutors give an assurance when there is no real prospect it could happen? We say there must be a threshold reached, otherwise, in any case, people could raise this in any technical case. Keep in mind, Collin, one of these judges, worked on the Princess Diana case. I know you're super excited to hear that. So we'll get to what else they've done in a bit. But Caitlin writes, the prosecution is doing this weird dance when they acknowledge that Assange could be given the death penalty if extradited, refuse to offer any assurances that he won't be given the death penalty if extradited, but still says he should be extradited anyway because, trust me, bro. So Kevin Gostola replying to Free Assange News, if the applicant is extradited, right? We heard this. So UK statute prohibits extradition if the requested person, in this case Assange, would be at risk of the death penalty. The fact that a UK government lawyer accepts that Assange could be extradited and then face additional charges that carry the death penalty is a big deal. So, Comrade Misty, remember that judge I talked about? Worked for MI6. And she shares, this is fine. This is fine. So, to close us out, Comrade Misty, if you are a member of independent media and you are bitching and moaning because Assange supporters talk about Assange too much and expect you to cover it, you do not fucking get it. Who the actual fuck do you think they're coming for? when they're done with Assange.
Right.
Nico
And that's what
House.
exactly.
Go ahead.
That's what Misty shared with me, because there's certain, I'll say it, Tim Black had an issue with his interview with Cornel West last week. He was like, I don't get why people are making such a big deal about Assange, because it's not, quote unquote, a black issue to him.
Oh, no, it
And,
couldn't be.
like, he's gone so pro-black that he forgets you're an independent media, sir.
Yep.
And Missy is right. Like, they're coming for you next.
Let's talk about black and brown folks in Afghanistan who got double tapped in the collateral murder video. Let's talk about all the black and brown folk who got murdered by people that were found out during the Vault 7 leaks, the Iraq files. How many times are you going to go over this with people? What about Palestine?
Right.
What about what Israel's doing? Julian Assange spoke to that too.
Right. And you know what? And I don't want to talk about Cornel West or Tim Black really, but
yes,
I just thought of this. Just because Cornel West recently talked with Assange.
Was out there with Randy Credico.
Right. So you would think that
you think he'd tell Tim Black to shut the fuck up, and he doesn't know what the fuck he's saying.
That could have been a time to educate Tim. No, this is why you should care.
Yeah.
You know, so like, given like what he's in jail for, that affects you in terms of what
all that rage and passion is saved for people like Jimmy Dore and you know,
so it just
RBN.
kind of goes to show it's either one of two things with Dr. West. Like, either he doesn't care about these issues as much as he says he does, or he is told and it just kind of goes over his head.
Yeah.
Because it may not be applicable to him either.
Nico House, I want everyone to pay attention to how quietly Elon Musk has been about the Assange trial, despite the fact he could have tens of millions paying attention with a single tweet. The silence is deliberate, and it's about time his loyal followers start asking who he really works for.
Well, I mean, we've been new, but you know, it's not surprising that Elon has been fairly silent about this.
So the defense concluded by saying that this is not a prosecution, but a persecution by the highest levels of government, and that the indictment was only issued when the CIA was planning to render and kidnap Assange, and the U.S. president ordered plans for his murder. Assange would like you to keep fighting. So, yeah, I don't know when we're going to get results from this. The words are maybe around March. So, yep. Andy would like me to remind people that Juan was live with Misty on TNT Radio earlier today. You can check out Misty's Substack to find links to find that. I'm sure Andy can link that in the chat. But yeah, closing thoughts? Anything?
I mean, closing thoughts. I mean, overall, keep fighting, you know, and you guys, I mean, if you've been in independent media and long enough, you'll know about Assange by now. And so, you know, this is bad. And like, I have no faith in our system that it's going to work in a way that it should work for Assange, that he will be. And I don't say this with any sort of, you know, certainty, but I mean, it's not looking good for him at this point. And you need to do, in the same way that you guys have been very well, I would add, you know, calling out politicians in regards to what's happening in Palestine, calling out politicians in regards to what happened at George Floyd. You need to have that same passion and that same fire for Assange as well. Well, really any issue that you care about where the empire is involved, but especially given this, where this could very well affect the information that you get on a daily basis in terms of how the press can easily manipulate you. And we've seen this in terms of what Israel is doing in regards to the propaganda that they're spewing alone. You know, imagine that happening here to that degree with the information that from sources that we have been conditioned to believe to be true.
Mm-hmm.
And so you need to continue to really stand up for Assange in terms of what's happening to him and the effect that that will have in terms of not just free speech, but the idea of, you know, not being able to say the truth and then, you know, you get penalized for it.
Yep.
So this affects everybody.
Absolutely.
So we need to make sure that we've been doing our part. And I mean, shout out to Missy and all the activists
Yep.
who have been doing this work for years and been, you know, who've been doing this activism for years without really much thanks, and really not much is so far has resulted from this. So if you really care, you know, push your politicians to do more for Assange. We had Halo last week. If you want to support in terms of, you know, like writing letters to your politician, she will do them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, all you have to do is just send her.
I'm still waiting my box from her.
Right.
So.
And you know, she will do and if you go to last week's stream, we linked her information so that if you want to do something like that, you can.
Yeah.
But we need to take this very seriously, because this is the potential of heading down a slippery slope in terms of what we deem as truth. That if they can do this to Assange, they can do this to anybody, and that includes us, especially who are in independent media.
Well, otherwise, if we don't get this guy free,
we're fucked.
It's gonna be a bad time. So, you know, here's how you can help. Look, like, subscribe, share this stream, help fight suppression. It's a doozy. You know, help I didn't get to 2K. Hit that little subscribe button down there. Let us know what number you got in the comment. You know, we'd love to know who gets number 2000. We're getting there. So, you know, tell them what they win, Care Bear. I don't know. We ain't got nothing to give you. Sorry.